Infinity Train is one of my favorite shows. It's probably the show I've connected with the most and gotten the most enjoyment out of watching. Because of this, I thought it'd be fun to take a closer look and analyze the series, pointing out as many hidden details and small moments as I possibly can. The goal of this project is to explore things you might have missed the first time around and see how much more is going on beneath the surface. As for my credentials, I've watched the series 5 times through and specifically season 3 7 times. In the past, I've made public brackets, rankings, graphics, and a lot of edits. I have seasons 1 and 2 on DVD and bought all seasons on separate streaming platforms. Most recently, I made a trailer for the show. Check that out, by the way, if you haven't. I'm by no means an expert, but I'd like to think I know my stuff. And despite the show being gone for around 4 years by this point, I still love finding ways to bring the fandom together. You may be asking, why start with season 3 when doing an analysis video? So getting started with episode 1, but in all seriousness, it's because book 3 is my favorite season, and I had an urge to analyze it. Now just for some basics before we start, unlike past seasons with other passengers, Grace and Simon's numbers don't stay consistent from scene to scene or even episode to episode. Because of that, I won't be tracking every single number change. However, the rows of the numbers tend to stay consistent, unlike last season where it sometimes felt like Grace's number was changing every other scene, even within the same moment, so I'll be keeping track of the rows instead. Saying this, however, keep in mind that Grace wears a glove for the majority of the season, and the top of Simon's number is carried by his sleeve, so the number changes are hard to track. Already off to a great start. Anyway, to get to what you're all here for, the analysis. You can hear the instruments tuning up, followed by the conductor tapping the stand to get the band's attention. Nice realistic touch.
When I look at you, I see me. And when I look at me, I see you.
The song they sing is clearly meant to be ironic. It talks about treating everyone with respect, which, as we know, is the exact opposite of what the Apex believes. Jesse also sings this song in the family tree car.
We learned this song that I think might be helpful. It's called When I Look at You, I See Me.
Here we get our first glimpse at Grace, who for all intents and purposes has the same design and model as last season. Same goes for Simon. The only major difference is how they're drawn now that they're main characters. The creators seem to refine their designs, making them easier on the eyes. Some small but noticeable differences are her eyebrows being thinner, her chin being sharper, her and Simon's sound wave symbols being less drastically big, and her hair having more prominent strands. Both Grace and Simon carry fanny packs. Prior to this season, it was only Grace who had one. Simon is also missing a bracelet which he had in the previous season. One other interesting design choice is how Grace uses security tags as decoration on her clothing. We see the fitting room which Grace transformed into her throne room. There's a platform in the center, but what kind of fitting room has a platform like that? The throne she sits on is made of ski and skating equipment, possibly coming from the sports store in the mall. We see the divider she's hiding behind fly upwards, but how did it go up? We could assume it has a pulley, but who was pulling it and where did it go? In the wide shot, it's just gone. Right away, we see Grace dancing out of the room, a subtle but important detail that hints she was trained as a dancer from a young age, something that pays off 2 episodes later in the debutante ball car. The mailman Simon puts down is carrying the same sort of bag which belongs to Tuba, and later given to Hazel. It's an early indication that Simon has control over these miniatures and the Apex, but not over Tuba or Hazel. This idea of Simon liking these small figurines was teased last season as we saw him painting one when talking to Lake. We also get a brief look at his workstation, and it's kind of a blink or you'll miss it moment. It really just has basic supplies in it, nothing too special. We see Grace's number is 4 rows down her arm, but when she reaches for her knee pads, it appears as 3. As the season continues, it is shown as 4 rows going forward. We also see that Grace has a whole collection of knee pads, yet she chooses the purple ones, the exact same pair she wore in the previous season. On a practical level, this is likely just the creator sticking with the design they liked, but in-universe, considering she clearly has other options, it's interesting that she didn't switch them out.
You're just jealous I know how to make practical look good.
Is Grace a vampire like Tulip? Wait, no, false alarm. The play the musical car is performing is called Empathy Goes, which is a reference to the real-life musical of Anything Goes, though this musical was created by Jesse Kosei. This is the only time a specific real-world person is mentioned on the train, seemingly through the train's own influence. However, it's also possible that Jesse and Lake passed through this car during their travels and taught the group the song, especially since performing it is required to exit. One interesting background detail is that everything in the car is made of cardboard. The mask on stage is a representation of the comedy and tragedy masks, which is a common symbol found in theater and performance. In Infinity Train terms, it reminds me of the split identity of Glad One and Sad One, and how both personalities clash. Of course, in this context, it is used to further show the theater aspects of the car. This random kid goes ham on a fan denizen. Might be the first time we truly see punching on this show despite it being quick and kinda subtle. Kid has problems. When the purple rainbow above the stage is shown, it seems almost flat, yet when it falls, it looks much thicker. I've always been slightly bothered by this. Okay, so, if the light is sentient and the stand has arms which makes it his body, does that make this a beheading? Behind Grace, there's a store called Dad's Hair Club for Boys, except they crossed some words out to make it Apex's Hair Club for All. Well, I guess not everyone. There are some stores which are spoofs of real-life stores, like Dad's Hair Club for boys, most likely being the real-life brand of Hair Club for men. There's also a store in the prior season labeled Dog and Haas and Old Gravy, being parodies of the ice cream chain Haagen-Dazs and the clothing brand Old Navy. There are also Trans-Pacific stores like Sabs spelled with a star, Possum with the A replaced by the Apex symbol and the words Apex Rules written above it, Something Bonds, a store called Cha Cha, and it's cut off but the first word is armor. We get an answer to what happened to Lucy's eye as Grace teased it in the last season, being a result of a harpoon pack. Down below, there are stores like Top and Gilmart. Right after, up top, you can see a store called Good Smells. When cutting to the apex, we see the creators copy and pasted the same Dad's Hair Clip for Boys store down below, except this time without any words crossed out. They can't be all that inclusive then. When showing the doors to the car, there's a shop called Pagey above it. There are now corgis in the unfinished car, after Atticus stated he would send a squad there to help out after the damages 1-1 caused. The phone that Turtle is talking on has no cord.
Sir, the radar, sir. It appears to be jammed.
When the turtle's hat is removed, you can see it's wearing a tie like Hazel's, giving us an early clue that Hazel's a turtle denizen before we've even met her. The tie also echoes the one Ulrich wore in the flashbacks. Additionally, this turtle wears a Kiss the Shelf apron, referencing Ulrich's Kiss the Chef apron also found in the flashbacks. The camera zooms out to show the house, and seeing as we see the whole bottom floor but no stairs, I question how the family gets up to the other floors. Maybe through the wonky gravity of the car? No, not the turtle totter. And these same kids were the ones who were sucker punching the fan denizen.
Looks like someone wants a new nickname. Chef's hat.
First we had socks and sandals and knee pads, and now we have chef's hat. Wow, these two are terrible at coming up with nicknames. You better get away from that corgi. Wow, this girl's really getting on my nerves. Right after this crime, we see a sign reading Human in the background, which is a reference to Amelia saying,
And me, I'm just a simple human.
There's a quick appearance of the spa car from episode 6 of the show. When Grace saves Simon, you can see a duck in the background. I believe this is a nod to a memory of Amelia and Ulrich riding on a duck boat. Considering the apex is a huge conglomerate of numbers on the number tracker, and Grace and Simon are just a little dot, you'd expect the apex to be much smaller than the number tracker suggests, with each person not even having a number that reaches beyond their hand. Now this is rectified by this number actually belonging to Amelia, but they showed this number tracker earlier when looking at the apex, and it was the same massive mess of dots. The jungle car makes its first official appearance in the show after being used in the poster for Book 1, despite us never seeing Tulip actually go through it. Grace's mirror from Book 2 returns. It is also the 4th time this season she can be seen looking at herself in a reflection. This motif seems to be her thing, as she is seen in a mirror last season when she is with Jesse. We see Simon's boots in action here. Without the context of next season, some may be wondering how he got boots like this, but we know with hindsight that these boots were the shoes given to passengers along with the uniforms during one's original rule over the train. I do question how Simon got them though. It's possible he could have found them after the steward took them all off the passengers like we see with Min and Ryan at the end of next season. Here's the introduction of Hazel and Tuba, two characters who, if you've seen the show, both have really happy endings. Tuba's design is a bit simpler, with her just being a purple gorilla with two giant tubas on her back. Tuba also has a brown bag, which is given to Hazel a bit later, after a certain event. Hazel's design is a bit more complex, with aspects of her look relating back to her origin as being a recreation of Amelia's fiancé Ulrich. The biggest resemblance is how Hazel has the same hair color as Ulrich, and similar to the turtles in the unfinished car, Hazel shares the same detail of the loose-fitting tie, all relating back to the clothes Ulrich used to wear. I couldn't find an instance where Ulrich wore a sweater vest or pink bracelet, but maybe there is a reason for that aspect, which I missed. Write it in the comments if you know. One other detail which links the two is Hazel's use of the saying, "Don't be daft!" We see more of Grace's strategies to lure kids into their cult. She gets down on their level and seems approachable so the kids will be more inclined to listen. Grace uses commonalities they all share to connect with Hazel and get her to trust her. Across the first few episodes, Grace uses many of the same tactics seen in influential cult leaders. She establishes herself as an unquestioning leader through the number system, with Simon positioned as her second-in-command to reinforce her power. She lies constantly, especially about the conductor, 1-1, and the exit, and manipulates the apex by making certain members feel special, even keeping their belongings in a favorites stash to maintain control. Grace also deliberately builds her group out of children who are more impressionable and easier to manipulate, unlike adults, who the apex are taught not to trust. She further encourages dehumanization by treating denizens as nothing rather than people. Everything in the world glows, so why didn't the pineapple? Also, Tuba doesn't glow, which means she's definitely not from this car.
We were setting up a home here.
Grace and Simon are led to believe that Hazel and Tuba have settled into a stable home here, yet later, Amelia states that the anomalies only began appearing about a month ago. That timing strongly suggests that Hazel's departure from this car is what triggered the anomaly in the first place. If they have been on the run from ejecting cars, that would be something they seem to fail to mention. This is the only episode in the show's run to end with a fade to white. The bubbles seem to have little bugs in them.
This is Louis. He's a good sort, but barking mad.
Barking mad is another British idiom meaning crazy or insane.
Ever since he took over, kids have been disappearing when their numbers go down.
Oh, scaring children. Add that to the list of manipulation tactics. There are octopi, octopuses, on the roof.
Couples do ballroom as a fun bonding activity.
Hazel knows couples do ballroom dancing for fun, because in one of the memories, we can see Amelia and Ulrich trying to learn it together. Doesn't look like it went too well, though. The fact she says
I took classes
also implies Hazel is just misremembering the experience as her own. Hazel falls onto her hands and knees, echoing how Tuba raised her. She is mirroring the behaviors she learned while growing up.
She ever heard of shoes?
One fun little thing about this episode is Grace and Simon's plans keep getting derailed, not letting them rush through the car and instead forcing them to comply with the train rules. First, it is seen as they enter the car, then when Hazel wants to learn the dance, and lastly when their plan to escape comes up short.
I looked for a way out of the building, and Grace, there's literally nothing out there.
This is the first time we get an idea that a car doesn't exist outside of a specific room the passengers are in. But why? Where did the denizens go? We know they exist and have lives outside. Maybe these ones don't?
Where do the children go?
The dancing scene is scored with the same song that played when the two explored the jungle car.
We're not half bad at this. Must be all the drills we run together.
Sure. What's a little box step when you've taken the head off a 6-foot vulture together?
Yet another example of a beheading. Man, are they ruthless to these denizens. I haven't even mentioned wheeling yet.
Hazel, last name unknown.
I see what you did there. Nice clue to hint towards the mystery. Though technically, Ulrich did have a last name, which was Timmins.
Simon Laurent and Grace Munro.
It is an interesting detail that the denizens just know their last names, because Simon and Grace would definitely not be willing to give that information up, so they must have somehow gotten that knowledge from being denizens of the train. Already we see how Grace and Simon differ, as Grace is willing to participate in the train's puzzles, while Simon is clearly uninterested.
Hey, why don't you teach me that cute song you were singing earlier?
No, 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 no. Grace's number actually moves above her glove in this scene to allow for the reveal. This is the only time it's shown extending past the top of her glove. Previously, the glove was always covering it completely. This is the only episode title that doesn't follow the pattern of starting with the word the, instead using le, the French word for the, as a reference to the cat's French-speaking origins, meaning translated, the episode is simply the cat chalet car. Spoiler, Hazel! Save it for the next season. When Grace checks her number, it is still 4 rows deep like it has been for a while, yet she treats it like a whole row is missing. We see Hazel mimicking Tuba's gorilla-like qualities again when she shakes off the snow. Hey, she's back! This may be a stretch, but Simon's hair flying in the wind sort of resembles the Gome's tentacles. Maybe it's irony, maybe it's karma, I'll let you decide. Although we are overanalyzing, I don't think we're going to go into detail about this scene. Pivoting swiftly to a different topic for no particular reason, this actually isn't the first time we see Frank. He appears briefly in Book 2 in the Lucky Cat Carnival.
Goodbye, and enjoy putting sunglasses on random animals!
This tea has a bug with a cowboy hat on it. That's how you know it's the good stuff.
Love the hint to Book 4 here. Crazy how they were thinking about the whole Wild West mixed with bugs concept already in Season 3. Makes me wonder if the creators had everything planned out for the cat's story by this point. Give me Book 5! Simon opens the door to a room in which the cat has been collecting things. She has a house in a bottle, a giant sword and shield, a board with math equations, the tic-tac-toe, and weird creature from the ball pit car. Then things that relate more to her and her cat-like qualities, like yarn, a cat tree, a TV which is not the same as the TV in the ball pit car, I checked, but seems to actually be from her own car, and a miniature version of the Lucky Cat Carnival. Is the Gome Simon get spooked by a taxidermy, or was she able to freeze one of these creatures in place? With both options, I have many questions. Above the fireplace there seems to be what looks like a handheld fireplace screen, which is often found in French country and alpine chalets like these.
I was 10 years old! I was a child! And you left me to a Gome!
With Simon officially giving the audience the name of the cockroach creatures here by calling them Gomes, it makes me wonder if Gome is the creature's actual name or if it was just what Simon and the cat call it. Considering the cat's extensive knowledge, I wouldn't put it past her to know the actual name of the creatures, but we all just accepted it like it was the name given at birth. In the background, there's a photo of the cat and Frank on the wall. Next to it, she seems to have a photo of her cabin. When Simon says,
She's collecting again.
it's likely in reference to the fact that all of her stuff got destroyed by Amelia, so she is restarting her collection. However, Grace immediately responds,
I'm sorry. This must be horrible for you.
which suggests a deeper history that hasn't been fully explained. Simon could have possibly been collecting objects alongside the cat before she abandoned him, making it painful to see her continue the same behavior as if he were disposable or insignificant. Another reason could be that Grace is saying something along the lines of, being in this car must be horrible for you, but with it being the line right after Simon mentioning collecting, I view it as having a possible deeper meaning. In what episode is next? Oh no.
Yeah, let's all take a nap on a rusty outdoor bridge when we're almost home.
Okay.
No, Hazel, get up.
I hate to admit it, but Simon brings up a good point about the rusty bridge. Probably isn't a good idea to be walking on it barefoot, especially if you have cuts on your skin, which I assume Hazel does after walking barefoot for over a month. Never mind growing up in a jungle and going through random universes on a daily basis. Can denizens get tetanus? We're going to do a quick rapid-fire round of details. Ready? Set? Amelia on the number tracker is now turned into a dot for whatever reason. A fun bowling pin sound effect is used when Roy falls down the stairs. Grace uses the word denizen for the first time.
Some grade A denizen garbage.
When tuba roars, you can hear the sounds of a tuba being blown.
Bugle was my daughter.
Confirmation of one of Tuba's kids. The car's physics are kind of wonky. With every ding of the clock, the room completely changes to reflect a single color, while obstacles tied to the other colors disappear and become intangible, as seen when the cage spawns in after the characters walk through it. However, they also explain that Tuba can see multiple colors, and therefore the obstacles associated with them, because she's colorblind, like when she sees the ramp but Simon doesn't. But if activating one color makes the other colors invisible and intangible, Tuba shouldn't be able to interact with them at all. Yet she later hits a wall and more obviously grabs a key, suggesting the space and colors aren't fully intangible, at least not to her. On top of that, gorillas aren't colorblind, so none of this really makes sense. Does this matter? No. But are we overanalyzing? Yes, we are. The speed at which the car moves upward seems to depend entirely on the scene. Obviously, it's whatever works for the plot, but in episode 1, it takes about 2 seconds, while here it's taking its sweet old time.
Tuba!
Get to the next car. I'll go back for Tuba. But you're no person.
To cleanse all of our hatred right now for Simon, let me just... Ah, yeah, that's better. Simon has officially reached 5 rows of numbers, meaning no matter how much Grace's number has gone down, according to the rules of the Apex, he is now the leader. Yet in the next scene, it's 4 rows deep. Still, I would assume it's higher than Grace's. Tuba's lack of backstory is purposeful to make her death at the halfway point more shocking. In the episode, we get little bits about her past, which makes us as a viewer think we will eventually learn more, only to realize too late that she will die in the same episode. It's honestly a fascinating technique that works wonders for shock value, but also has the unfortunate side effect of leaving her story feeling unfinished. The background wasteland seems to get more saturated in the scene, but I don't mind it because it makes the whole thing look really sweet and super cinematic. Whatever evil producer at Cartoon Network got this little girl to cry like this is a monster. Amazing acting from Isabella Abiera. 10s all around. This episode is actually the only episode in the series to be missing the opening credits.
We just won't tell Simon, okay?
The car we meet Tuba in is similar to the car we say goodbye to her in. Also, probably the 2 cars in the show which are the most similar in style. Due to what I said earlier with Simon's number being technically higher than Grace's by this point, pulling rank on him wouldn't actually work if we are going by their own rules. Of course, Simon doesn't know this yet.
Everywhere I go, I see his face.
It would be good for me to go to a funeral. It helps to say goodbye.
I know it's hard, but it'll be good to go.
The fact Hazel wants to have a funeral is a really good bit of storytelling, as Amelia didn't want to go to a funeral after her fiancé's passing. Hazel knows that going to a funeral helps with the grief, and Amelia never got that closure, instead being trapped on the train.
Tuba isn't here, so it would be hard to have...
There's no body left to bury, kid.
And one of the most hated characters in fiction was born. So how did Hazel, or for that matter Grace, get up that tree? There are very few branches to climb, and that thing looks really tall. I wish I could play this scene in full just so we could all sit here and feel the emotional weight of it all together, but I bet copyright would strike me down. So instead, I'll just keep talking while it quietly plays in the background. So anyway, what deeply repressed emotional issue would put you on the train? I'll go first. The way I view this scene, the birds represent Tuba and her kids who are now all in the afterlife, with Tuba being with them again. The bird that tries to follow is Hazel, but instead she's left behind. And then the light fading from the rock also parallels the light fading from Tuba, as her soul can now rest undisturbed. Sorry to ruin the scene for anyone, but Grace's animation is a bit wonky when the screen is turning. Amazing shot, by the way. Grab your popcorn. That is certainly a title. This is actually the same card Lake walks through in the intro of Book 2.
Some of the cars on the train have corrupted code. I created a pulse that scans for that code, and it was working fine until 3 weeks ago.
If the code was working fine until 3 weeks ago, we can assume there was no problem until Hazel left the jungle car. But in that episode, it is made pretty clear that they had just made a home there, or at least they didn't belong. So what about the jungle car made Hazel undetectable to Amelia's pulse? Simon's number is officially back at being 5 ribs, meaning he would be higher than Grace at this moment. By seeing that the canyon of the Golden Winged Snake's car is car number 626,894, we can assume the entirety of books 1 through 3 take place in the 600,000 range, as Tulip met Lake, and Lake and Jesse met the apex, so they all must be in similar part of the train. Yep, that is the title. It's probably a good thing Grace didn't let Simon see her number here, because he would most definitely be higher than her at this point. If Simon can hear Hazel crying from outside the cave, could he not just hear her when she was admitting she was a denizen? She was screaming at the same volume the entire time.
Good! I'll use it to fight him!
Hazel, shh!
I don't care! I can protect us with it! I'll be Tuba now!
Aww, a baby Simon on top of the train. How did he just know this was the exact car the cat was in? All the cars look identical from the outside. You think at a certain point he just poked his head into every car to find it? If not, he has a much better memory than me. This is one of my favorite scenes in the show, perfectly written and gives us a deeper understanding of how these two complex characters think. I don't have much to add, honestly. For one, we get the Samantha name drop for the first time.
Please, Samantha. I have to know why.
You left me, so give me something for Grace!
Emotional blackmail. I also noticed this black ball. It might be one of those magic 8-ball things. It's there in one shot but disappears in the next. Samantha has a similar paw scanner in her carnival to open the cage.
Maybe he's waiting to regroup on the gangway?
This is the first time we've heard the bridge connecting the train cars be referred to as the gangway, which is similar to real life, as the connection between two train cars is commonly referred to as a gangway connection or a corridor connection. Also, I thought it was interesting that up until this point, this passageway between cars had never really been referred to as anything.
No, you make the best pancakes!
Hazel knows that Amelia makes the best pancakes through her memories of Ulrich. The two were very briefly seen making pancakes together in one of her memories in the past car. She also brought a similar pan along with her on her travels. Another detail relating back to Amelia's past is when Hazel gives her a hug and says,
I like you. We're all here for you.
which was something a man said to Amelia after Ulrich's passing.
We're all here for you.
The notes that control the steward, which we saw in the ball pit car, returns but muted here when Amelia's sound shield goes off.
Can you do that, ponytail?
Is this a nickname or just teasing? Either way, add it to the list of terrible nicknames that are just aspects of their appearance. Anyone else notice that Grace likes to flick Simon's hair? Like, a lot? The Hey Ho Woe car was actually teased in Season 2 through a stand in the carnival being labeled Hey Ho Woe Toss.
Brilliant. It's reset. We'll have to wait.
We get a reference to the idea of cars being reset for the first time. This concept does beg the question of which cars on the train get reset. Does a puzzle car like the colored clock get reset? Does the Toad car reset after the Toad is taken away? What about the cars which have full-on worlds like the Corgi car or Wild West car? This also makes me wonder that if Amelia has to obey the car rules like we see when she has to wait for the canyon to fill, does that mean she has to solve the train puzzles along with the passengers when she is traveling across the train? Like, would she have to dance in the ballroom?
I made the cars I'm ejecting, but one didn't fancy that, so any car he didn't make, I must quarantine.
Wonder what quarantine looked like. I assume it's located at the back of the train, considering that's the direction Amelia and Hazel will eventually leave in, but until we get to Season 5, it remains a mystery. Would we have seen the end of the Infinity Train? Man, my heart breaks just thinking about the opportunities taken away from us.
No, I'm making amends. Maybe one day I'll even get off this train.
Man, what a good line. Definitely hits harder when we spend the entire season with people who want to stay on the train at all costs.
Have you ever considered that you've been wrong? Of course not! You're a child.
The concept of both Grace and Simon being children despite being 18 years old is brought up a lot in this season in contrasting ways. It's important to note that Simon arrived on the train at just 10 years old, still very much a child. As a result, he never received a meaningful education, lacked parental figures to guide him, and was never given the chance to properly mature. So in a way, he still is a child, certainly acts like one at points. Throughout the season, this idea is repeatedly reinforced through how other characters treat Simon, and in turn, how he reacts to it. In episode 3, they say that only children can wear the Mark of the Apex. Despite being a leader of this group and 18 years old, Simon insists on multiple occasions that he is not a child.
I'm not a child anymore. I know what I'm doing.
Similarly, in episode 5, Simon is called a child by Tuba and then ends up killing her moments later. Looking at this episode, when Amelia calls him a child, he gets extremely upset, having a tantrum and yelling at her to
say it again!
So Simon seems to be struggling with his inner self wanting to lead this child cult, while also insisting that he isn't a child anymore. I think this detail helps us understand his downfall a bit better, as his brain is already so scattered that when someone doesn't view him with the respect of an adult, he goes off on them, ironically proving that he is in fact a child. Amelia makes notice that the reason the turtles are in many of the creations she makes is because of the handkerchief which we saw earlier in the show. Amelia's denizen companion in season 5 would have been a turtle named Cork, so maybe the train just links Amelia's life with turtles. We see Hazel sleeping in her shell, though with Simon around, I wouldn't sit so close to that pit. You know what happened last time, right?
No, he won't. We just won't tell Simon, okay?
Looks like we're making eggs again. The car is moving up faster now, still not as fast as the first time though.
Good luck, Grace.
And we never see Hazel again. This is not a surprise to anyone watching, but we see a lot of the earlier throwaway lines or moments show up as scenes in Grace's memories, like Grace having private dance instruction,
Hey, I had dance lessons too. I had private instruction.
being left out of getting ice cream,
My instructor put me in her group class recital, but my parents couldn't come and the other girls in the class didn't know me, so they didn't invite me to get ice cream afterwards.
Grace meeting the conductor,
7 years ago in the pumpkin car, do you remember saving a girl?
Chubby Bunny,
Did we have marshmallows?
I'm sorry, what? This is where you want to redeem your loss at Chubby Bunny?
and Simon wearing socks and sandals when they meet.
Even if he was wearing black socks and sandals when I first met him.
Though there's actually a small continuity error here. Grace says earlier on that he was wearing black socks and sandals, but when we see their first meeting, he's clearly wearing white socks and sandals. Either Grace is misremembering or, more likely, it's a simple oversight by the creators. In the memory at Grace's house, you can see her playing around with makeup. This moment could have led to her using makeup as the mark of the apex, maybe despite her parents. You could also see her in the 3 mirrors when looking at the vanity, which is similar to how she was introduced at the beginning of the season. Like Samantha said,
the tape reflects how each memory was stored.
We see this explode with how there's a spotlight over her parents because all she truly cared about was them showing up, or how the caretakers are all faceless because they seem to rotate so frequently that she didn't connect with any of them. Grace's last memory on Earth before the train appeared to her was stealing from a mall, and like poetry, after boarding the train, she ultimately chooses to remain in a mall. Maybe it's her subconsciously clinging to a sense of home, or maybe it's the train's way of ironically showing she's still trapped in the same attention-seeking patterns from her childhood, waiting until she finally understood why she was there in the first place. Grace's train appears as a royal carriage to entice her aboard, presenting itself as high status and offering the attention she craved. This raises questions about the train's morality, and specifically how it lures people at their lowest points onto a train where they're effectively kidnapped and placed into life-threatening situations with little idea of how to get home. The steward tries to ram Grace here, which is odd considering there is no reason for it to do this. I believe this action is just what Grace thinks happened, because like we see a second later, this memory is warped. I'm not quite sure why the steward came at her, but I'm assuming it wasn't to harm her like she believed. Maybe we would have returned to this moment in Book 5 if it was greenlit. Drop your ideas below. In addition, considering the car only has pumpkins in it, I wonder what Amelia needed from it. Maybe a memory from Halloween or something?
Samantha! I can't fit! Samantha, I'm still out here! Help!
We get an angle of the mall car from the past where there's a store named Bayou's Art Supplies, as well as the Democratic Banana, which is a spoof off the real-life store Banana Republic. When Grace originally told Hazel they don't have to tell Simon, she can be seen frowning, but in the memories it is changed to her smiling. Maybe this memory was altered slightly in Grace's mind. Since I pointed out the wonky animation of Grace's previous spin movement, I'd like to point out how clean this one is.
I'm sorry! Is that what you want to hear? Will that word fix it?
Sorry, ain't no justice I ever heard of.
When Simon shows up again, we see how his number is already at his neck. Some people find it insane how Simon's number jumps so high here and in the next episode, but I think what they aren't considering is that the number doesn't have a set value per action. It is based on how good or bad you are in terms of your problem. Although the show doesn't outright tell us Simon's problem, We can assume he originally boarded the train due to something related to abandonment and trust issues, which can be seen by his need for approval, lack of empathy for others, and how he can't comprehend being wrong. By committing this act to Grace and for all intents and purposes killing her, he isn't just wrecking some house or wheeling a denizen, he is choosing to kill his best friend. This action causes number to spike because it represents a dramatic descent from who he once was. As it currently stands, this is the episode with the least amount of time spent in the title car, being 1 minute and 25 seconds, with a few seconds once they enter, and this moment at the end being the only times we see the origami car in the entire episode. Even an episode like the musical car from the beginning of the season had more time spent in it. This fact doesn't relate to the next episode, however, where we see it a bit more. Why is there so much falling in this season? They use Simon's sound wave as a way to cover his face in shadows. Cool detail.
I can't believe it!
Infinity Train really said, Grace, sit down, you're watching this back in 4K. Grace's number is here in one shot and gone in the next. This is probably intentional though, as adding a number like this in a faraway shot would be difficult. When Hazel originally left, she wasn't looking at Grace, but now after Grace confronted her problems and apologized, Hazel can now be seen looking at her. In a way, it's Grace forgiving herself through Hazel. When flying through Grace's mind, in the background, it mostly just shows scenes from her memories as well as from earlier in the season. They also show a couple frames from last book with Lake and Jesse, but when the camera switches to facing forward, we see now the memories reflect her guilt over Hazel and how badly she treated her. Can I also add that I love how the scene ends with Hazel's line of, It is super quick and easy to miss with how much is going on, but I think it was a really poignant moment for Grace's character as the funeral with Hazel really marked the switch from viewing the inhabitants of the train as nothing to viewing them as living beings. There seems to be some inconsistencies with how the tapes work. When she exits the tape, it seems as though some time has passed, yet with Tulip, when she went into her own tape in book 1, she exited right when she left, with no time passing at all. Grace is shown in a mirror again this season. Is someone keeping track? It's been 6 times. 7 if you count her staring at herself. Grace spent more time looking at herself when she was self-centered, and less once she began to find herself, an ironic growth that finally allowed her to see who she really was. Returning to the apex, Grace no longer wears her glove to cover her number. She isn't using it anymore to hide and is instead accepting her flaws. We also see a scene later how her number has gone down to only being 2 rows deep. The mall car is a lot more wrecked than when we last saw it, as Simon's insane mental state and leadership has transferred to the apex. The mall actually goes through many transformations throughout the show. First is in book 2 for its introduction, when it looks sort of dark and gloomy like a villain lair. Next is at the beginning of this season where it seems a bit more lively. Then is here when Simon takes over, and it has more of a red tone. And skipping ahead for a second, but the last time is when Grace reforms the group. This may be a stretch, but Simon's book, the Esmeralda trilogy, may reflect this being the 3rd season of Infinity Train, making it a trilogy at the time. The novel is titled Book 1, which is how Infinity Train titles their seasons. However, of course this is an actual book, so having it be titled Book 1 makes sense. Oh no, she's back. Simon returns having stolen Grace's throne and title as leader of the Apex, donning the highest number. We also see how he's replaced his sweatshirt with something more resembling a cape or a royal garb. He's let his hair out of the ponytail as well, maybe because of that terrible nickname Grace gave him, or because she wouldn't stop flicking it. The light they stole from episode 1 returns to cast a spotlight on Simon's descent down the escalator. It also reminds me of how Grace put a spotlight on her parents, wanting them to be there for her, but now Simon has a spotlight, something she didn't want. Unlike with the term null, which Grace coined and actually has a meaning, Simon's creation of the term void to describe a leader who is unfit for leading doesn't really make much sense. It shows who the real brains of the operation was, am I right?
Get off! Stop! Okay, please don't do this!
Throw her off the train!
Grace's number jumps back up to being 3 rows deep so they can do the shot of her number going down. Look, more punching! We now have it 2 times! That's the same amount of time someone brutally dies on this show. Wait, no, we still have more of those. The music from Simon's journey to Samantha returns to score this battle.
No, I'm not responsible for your problems. I don't owe you anything.
You owe me everything!
I love how the show presents this way of thinking to the audience by bringing up whether Grace created Simon, and if so, does that make her responsible for everything bad that has happened because of Simon's actions? The Hazel in Grace's mind brings up this idea earlier in the episode when she tells Grace that she killed Tuba because she is the one who created Simon.
You killed Tuba!
No, it was Simon!
He didn't come up with the idea to wield denizens on his own. It's your fault she's gone.
Although there isn't a concrete answer to this, I think both roads can be argued, as without Grace's influence, Simon more than likely would have stayed an innocent kid, but because of her, went down a darker path. However, Simon had control of his own actions, and like Grace, could have realized what they were doing was wrong. If Simon's boot is cracked after hitting the railing, how is he walking on the bottom of the gangway? One explanation could be that's just damage, but they make it a point to show how the light went out. There's some weird stuff going on when Grace gets pushed off the train. If you slow it down, you can see she kind of passes through the handrail. She shrinks like it is getting further away, but she hasn't passed the bar yet. Also,
What would I do without you?
You would die until you're dead.
I love the range of emotions that goes through Simon's face at this moment. He goes from happy he succeeded in killing Grace to absolute despair realizing what he just did, then back to being elated and actually insane. I'm not a hater of the bird saving Grace like some others are. I think the moment of the denizens who she learned to help helping her is a poignant one. But despite this, it doesn't stop me from pointing out the fact of how absurd it is that they traveled from the origami car to the mall car. The mall car has been significantly tidied up since Grace took back control, with a lot of the graffiti being scrubbed and the messiness now being cleaned. The set is now also streaming through the top, showing how the brighter future for the Apex. Sorry to undercut this emotional scene, but I noticed it, so you have to too. Grace switches escalators as she goes down. Oh, she's back. Also, the escalator wasn't running, but then when she steps on it, it seems like it's moving. They probably just didn't want to animate it. Honestly, I don't blame them. And that's it for me. Thank you so much if you made it through this entire video. This isn't my usual thing and I was learning while I went, so any and all support means a lot. If you enjoyed, which I assume you did if you made it to the end, consider subscribing or leaving a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Although I don't have plans to make another one of these yet, I did really enjoy it despite it being a behemoth of a project. Wanting more content? Check out the trailer I made for the entire show. It's some of my proudest work. And if you're more into edits, follow my TikTok page where I post Infinity Train edits on occasion. With that, I'm out. My editing brain needs a break. One of those should work.